I would like to take the time to thank the viewers for tuning in to watch this amazing panel where CAC will be moderating, and I'll be jumping in and out to ask different questions. And we'll be talking with Houa, Yayo, Money, and Moua Lee about the film industry. And I hope this inspire you, the next generation, to follow your dreams and pursue filmmaking or pursue anything. So this is a free streaming. We hope we inspire you, and there's no right or wrong answer. We're here to voice our opinions and as well as inspire other people. So uh Kat, you want to start ahead?
We'll just start with you guys introducing yourself. So let's start with, I'm just going on what I'm seeing on the screen. So Moa, why don't we start with you, like where you are right now, what you do in the industry, and if you have like another job or.
Yeah, well, thank you, Doua and CAC for having me as part of this panel. I'm glad that you guys invite me into this. And yeah, so as for myself, like, right now I live in Minnesota, and my what pays the bill is my wife and I own a restaurant out at the. If you guys are familiar with St. Paul area, we own a restaurant out in the St. Paul area, and it's at the Moncton Marketplace. But we just recently sold it and looking to venture into other things. But right now, what we're mainly doing is we're importing products from Thailand and selling it online as well as. So that's what pays the bill right now. And as for me, my background, as far as college, I before I went into film school, I thought I was going to be a social worker, but then I thought, man, I hate sitting in an office and dealing with a lot of people, which I ended up doing something that deals with people, but in a different way. But when I was midway through college, I always wanted to make film. In my mind, I always visualized something on certain mediums. So I went into that, and then I graduated with that. Obviously, film and video production is really tough to get into, but fortunately, at my local the CBS affiliate station in Fresno at that time, I interned there, and then before I graduated, they hired me for a production running studio cameras there, and so and then after a year there, they moved me to photojournalism, and that's in Fresno, and then in '97 I moved to Minnesota, and then I worked at Care 11 as a photographer, news photographer for a couple of years as well before I really went into making Hmong movies. And so that's my professional background. I would say that's my professional background. And then Hmong movies, I actually started in Fresno when I joined forces with Su Ta. Well, Ning Su Ta, some of you younger generations, the younger guys, they may not know of Su Ta anymore, but I think Doua and Kag, you guys, and Houa, you guys probably heard of Su Ta or familiar with him. But yeah, I produced, co-produced and direct a Hmong movie with Su Ta. We went back to Thailand in 95 or 96. Yeah, and then we made Komo Huplona. Yeah, again, the young guys, it's 20 plus years. So the young guys, they're not familiar. You may not be familiar with the movie, but that's my first movie before I moved to Minnesota. And then when I got into Minnesota, I worked a couple of years at Care 11, as I said. And then in 1999, I thought in the back of my mind, I always wanted to make a Hmong movie, and so I started making Hmong movies, and then from there, I guess as they say, the rest is history. And as not, it's not like I've gone anywhere far, but as far as making Hmong movies, like yeah, so that's what I did, and I did a total of about 10 movies now for Hmong audience, and then my latest one is a Thai movie, a Thai horror movie, and so that's me. Yeah.
I mean, without you, like with your film, like really the Hmong people would not push the boundary. So I just want to give you a clap on that. So we
Yeah,
just
Thank
want
you,
to.
Joa.
I think a lot of the younger generation, if they don't know you, it's you really inspired a lot of us, including myself.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
I mean,
So-
I'm honored to be on the same panel as the great Moua Lee. So and the great talking about the STV video, Sutos video production, man. Hey, that's what we grew up on. Come on, Kuplo is one of my favorite movies. So hey, Moua Lee, cried all the time, man. It's a great movie.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Money. I appreciate it. Thank you.
So let's go to Houa. Why don't you introduce yourself and what you do?
Hi, everybody. Thanks for inviting me to join this panelist. A little bit about me. I am a mom of seven. I used to live in Minnesota, but my husband and I made the big drive all the way to East Coast. So I'm actually not too far from Doua. I'm in Pennsylvania right now. Yeah, so I'm getting used to the East Coast here, getting used to the weather. I am enjoying.
I used to live in New York, so I'm on the other
Oh.
side now.
You're close to Yayo.
Yeah, you're close to Yayo.
Oh, I am. Okay. Yeah. So it was quite a change, but I do like it here. So what provides for me is I am one of those sisters on the hey, I want to take, I buy. So I do live jewelry sales. That's what pays the bills. I'm also a published author. I spent the first I'd say about the first maybe 5 years of film as a Hmong film critic. So I reviewed a lot of the films that our filmmakers made. And every time one of them came in, I had someone who sent it to me and I watched it and I would just kind of write a review about what I thought it was. And that was how I got introduced to Moua Lee production. And I wrote his very first screenplay for him. And then I went on to form my own production company and made 2 feature films with that. So my latest one is called Doua, and we're currently in post-production with our second one, but with COVID, we'd had to put a little halt on production and everything. So that's a little bit background about me. As far as education, I have a degree in creative writing. So I consider myself more of a writer than a director. I do feel that I am a better writer than I am a director, but I'm learning as I go as well. And so that's a little background about me. So
How about you, Yayo?
My name's Yayo. It's actually Yayo,
Yayo.
but everybody says Yayo. No, it's okay. Everybody says Yayo. That's essentially my nickname. So I make my living as a camera assistant, pulling focus, clapping, handling a lot of the logistics of the camera department. I also do a lot of, I'm making my way towards being a DP. So I shoot a lot of stuff, low budget music videos, stuff like that on the side. I would say I probably have a very traditional film route in terms of as traditional as you can have in America. I went to film school. After film school, I did a bunch of internships. I actually did like 6, 7, 8 unpaid internships. Boston, starting out. I'm originally from Massachusetts, but I'm based in New York. And so like I started in Boston. I went to LA and I interned and worked in LA for like half a year. And then I got a job offer in New York City. And LA was cool, but I'm being an East Coast kid. Like I needed like 4 seasons, like just constant sun all the time. It got to me. So when I got the opportunity to get a job at a camera house, working as a prep tech for like, productions that will rent camera packages out, I would be like, the technician that would help them. So I did that for 3 years in New York City, made my contacts that way, built my knowledge up, and eventually I joined the local 600 union, and then I work in a lot of commercials, mostly television commercials, and every now and then I'll day play on movies.
Cool. How about you, Money? What's your background?
Yeah, so I mean, I've done pretty much run everything from copy to camera and on production, but right now I'm pretty much a visual effects artist. I've supervised on some big shows, worked on some big shows. I think the last big thing that I worked on was Superman Lois, the first episode, the pilot. And then now I'm just freelancing, having more time to do my stuff. But other than that, I mean, you know, education, career-wise, I have a business degree, a bachelor's in business degree, and also a film and animation degree. So, but just been out here working on films and visual effects.
Some of you already kind of touched on this already, but do you remember like at what age you decided you wanted to be filmmaker or get in the film industry? Like how did you discover that? And like at what age was that?
It was pretty young, but I mean, the one film that actually, I mean, I've always loved film. I mean, you know, coming over here, you know, as an immigrant, you know, and all you had was TV, you know, to teach you everything. You know, it was either kung fu theater or movie, and then movies taught me how to speak English, you know, and all this stuff. But I think when I realized it was Jurassic Park was, you know, and then also Moua Lee's film. So there it is. So it's like, you know,
I'd say senior year of high school, but originally I wanted to be an animator. I'm much more like growing up, I was like very into animation and drawing, but I realized that I hate the tediousness of drawing frame by frame by frame. And I eventually got a camera, and then I translated my ideas into video production. And that's when I realized this is what I want to do. Like, this is the route I want to go towards. I actually went to a trade school for graphic arts, thought I wanted to be an animator, and then realized I actually preferred to just like shoot stuff with live people. But yeah, probably 17, 18 was when I seriously thought about it. Like, I thought, hey, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to college for this. I'm going to, you know, try to figure out some kind of way to do this for a living.
What about you, Paul?
It was very young. I remember like my very first Hmong movie I watched was La Lun Cha Cha Pong Na, and that was one of the films that really got me thinking about writing. I started out wanting to write a story, wanting to write the story, wanting to write the script, and then of course seeing Moa's films. Those are what really inspired me. And I grew up in a really traditional household where all we watched were Hmong movies, and so I was the typical child who grew up thinking that the American horror films were actually real and traumatized me for a really long time. So, but that, yeah, I was, you know, one of those really young Hmong kids who's, you know, was watching the film and thinking one day I'm going to have my story on there.
What about you, Moa?
What really stirs me already is when I was a little kid, you know, at the village, and they show Charlie Chaplin's, and the missionaries would show Charlie Chaplin's and the Lone Rangers, the black and white movies. You know, you as a little kid, you know, you're fascinated by it, but the concept doesn't even exist. Or you don't mind, oh, someday I'm gonna be a filmmaker, but that kind of sowed the seed of of the fascination of actually trying to tell a story on the screen. So. And then we came to America. I think the one movie that makes me go, wow, I wish I can do something like that is the earlier version of Walking Tall. It's about this cop, you know, whose family has been killed by bad guys, and you know, he just took revenge on it and take, you know, a club and whatever, and just, you know, look for his own justice. And yeah, so when I watched that film, I think it's made in the late 70s, and when we first came to America, I saw it on TV, and I was like, wow, you know. And so that's when I start thinking, you know, what if I can make something, tell a story, you know, not a story like that, but a story, my story, Hmong story, or a little story here and there. And so when I went to college, my second year of college, I decided to go into film, and then I made my first short film as a college project, and then my graduate project is a feature film that I just, you know, try to convince my friends at my church and you know, the youth at my church to join me, and some of the parents, and we made a full feature-length movie, believe it or not. We didn't make it in film because it's so expensive, you know, but at that time, the video camera starts coming in already, and video camera is starting to kind of people take video camera more seriously instead of just being strictly film. So I decided to make just a full-blown feature film as my graduate project, my senior project is what they call it. And so we made a movie. And so, yeah, I would say that when I really started rolling, it's been when I was in college. Yeah, and then from there, I made more movies continuously until a few years ago.
When you guys go into this career, it's not a career that we understand because they all come money and stuff like that, right? But this is different, especially for somebody like who freelances like Yayo, Money, and me, where you don't have a full-time job. So were your family supportive?
I think pretty much all of us, our parents object to what we do because, arts and artistic stuff usually doesn't, unless you achieve a certain level where you become an A-list in filmmaking, it's hard for you to make a living, especially in the Hmong community. But I'm lucky enough to make movies that I made enough money and enough money to pay to cover the expenses, and then enough left to go and make another movie. And so that's why I'm able to continue making, even simple Hmong movies, melodrama, simple stories like what we used to make. So that kind of keeps me going and keep your artistic and your creative juice flowing.
Did you get married before you dive deep into filmmaking or afterwards, and was your wife supportive, or what was the first conversation you had with her before getting married?
I already made, let's see, I made Como Kuplo, and then Lo Lang, Lo Ma Thiên Julie, and then Lu Zhao, and then that's where I met my wife. So yeah, I was already making movies before I met my wife, and most of you guys might not know, but I met my wife in Thailand when I went there. I was still a single guy, and then I met my wife there, and she was in one of my movies too. And then I guess one thing leads to another, and I say, hey, I'm gonna take you with me to America. So here I am. So yeah, I already made a few films before I got married. And then as far as your second question, Doua, yeah, I think my wife I have to give a lot of credit to my wife. She's very supportive of what I do, and she understands my passion, even though sometimes it doesn't pay the bill, or it barely covers the bill. She still understands that, hey, that's part of who you are, and she's very supportive. So I'm glad I have a wife that is very supportive and understanding of my passion.
I think that's a very important point that people should understand. When you go into filmmaking, in the beginning, it's just you, but eventually when you get married or as you get older, especially we like Americans, when they get older, they leave their family, they go take care of themselves. As long as they can take care of themselves, it's fine. But I feel like for most of us, even if we don't live at home anymore or in the same state, there's still that responsibility, that obligation to the family. And when it comes to your significant other, whether it's your girlfriend, boyfriend, husband, or a wife, I think it's very important to find someone that understands, and because it's not easy. It's not a smooth road. It's not like consistent, stable money. So it can be very hard to find someone that understands that. Like some people will say, "Oh yeah, I get it. Oh, I get that you like doing that," but then they only get it for like the first few months, and then like 6 months down the road, they're like, "Are you still on this? Like, why can't you move on?" But it's like, no, this isn't something I want to move on from. This is something I want to grow in. And I do feel that like relationships, whether it's friends or romance, it can be very difficult to find lasting ones because pursuing creative arts, whether it's film or photography or acting or anything with that in the arts, it requires a lot of personal sacrifice and a lot of time investment. And feel, and if you want to succeed, you have to commit that time. I know a lot of people that are very skilled, way better than me in everything, but they're no longer working in the industry because they didn't want to put in the time because they didn't realize, oh, you're working 12, 14, 16-hour days, or they didn't realize that, oh, it's not about, you're not getting famous, nobody knows you, you're not making a lot of money. If you're lucky, you make enough to like have a comfortable living, but that's not common, and most people give up along the way. So to anybody that's watching this and listening, I think for us, all of us, that the fact that we continue to pursue our creative passions, whether full-time, part-time, the fact that we haven't let that go, that's a key part of it. Like my parents, they don't support me doing this. I'm 32 now, and it wasn't, and I don't even know if they still truly support me. But I make enough money now where they realize, okay, he's not going to go to law school anymore. When I graduated film school, literally at my graduation party, my my dad got my uncles to come to talk to me to not go to LA, to go to law school. And then literally every time I called home or came home and visited, it was like, so when are you going to find a real job? When are you going to come back home? You should move back home. And if I wasn't serious, if I didn't have that drive that Mo was talking about, that like you need to express it some way.
So how did you, because for me as an actor, like my success, my parents will see it on screen, see me standing on stage with like people like Jet Li or Donnie Yen. And,
Yeah.
when I took them to the premiere of Mulan, it's pretty much like, it was like the aha moment of like, okay, this is what he's trying to do. And to stand on stage in front of, with Donnie and Jet Li, like, okay, that's awesome. And not a lot of Hmong people would ever get that chance. Like, how do you show your parents that you're succeeding of your goals and dreams? Because you're behind the scene.
That's a very good point. I can't show them. I can tell them about it. I can be like, oh yeah, mom and dad, I worked on Spider-Man, but I'm behind the scenes. So it really doesn't matter. Like the crew never gets any kind of recognition. And it's hard to explain, especially to the like Hmong people, what it is, because films are so complicated. There's so many roles, so many jobs. It's not just the movie star and the director, but that's what people think of. They think, oh, if you want to work in the movie industry, you want to be a director or a movie star. It's like, well, no, I want to work on camera. I want to light. I want to do art. I want to do set design. But it's hard to explain that. And a lot of my family in Minnesota think I shoot like wedding photography. When I tell them I do film, they're like, oh, you should come and shoot my daughter's wedding. I was like, I don't know how to do that. I'll do it, but that's not what I do for a living. That's a difficult thing because it's like, what can you show them? So the only thing I could show my parents was that I was financially stable. I was able to support myself and support them. And I think like after 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, then they're like, okay, it seems like he's able to keep it up.
I think to add to your point, because when people see behind the scenes of a movie, it's all fun, people are laughing, but that's not the case. Sometimes 90% of the time, and there's a lot of stress that goes into it. So I think, like you were saying, a lot of us are still here because I think there is a passion for it. And some people go into it with the wrong mentality, as you were saying, like meeting famous actors, directors, but sometimes you might work on that movie, but you might not even talk to them the whole time. So and going back to where you were talking about how your family wants you to shoot their wedding, right? It's like, it goes back to when people ask me, what do you do? I say, I'm a DP. And I say, oh, so you operate a camera. I'm like, well, sometimes I don't, it depends on the project. So, or they're like, oh, so you're a Steadicam operator. I'm like, no, that's a completely different position in the industry that I have no skills in that, although I do work with the Steadicam operator. So there's different positions that people don't understand, and I think that's what makes it hard, especially for the older generation, because they don't understand that you can make a living with this doing this.
There's all kinds of jobs, but how do you explain that?
Yeah,
You can't, and you can't blame them, because before I started working, I had no idea what was possible in this industry. I had no idea if you could actually make a living in this industry.
yeah. Because even going back to you say you're right now you're making a living as an AC. A lot of people don't know what an AC is.
Exactly.
Yeah, and you have first AC, second AC. So it's like, how do you explain that to people? Especially, we don't have the language for it, right? We don't have the
Yeah.
word for it. So it's like, oh, I pull focus. What is pull focus? Like, or like when you go prep a
Yeah.
camera, right? Right? What do you
Yeah,
mean you
yeah.
prep a camera? Like, why do you spend a day putting a camera together and not shoot it?
So, Hoa, like, what about you? Being itu nya itu wife and also being a sister-in-law. Like, how does that play into role being a filmmaker, being a female filmmaker? And do you feel supported by your family or even by your peers, like your the male peers or the other female directors that filmmakers that are out there? Like, what is your process of that?
I do echo Moua and Yayo on support from within the home, because I happen to have a very understanding, very supportive husband who really pushed me to get out and to actually do this. And when I shot both my feature-length films, I shot them both, and I also ended up getting pregnant during the whole production process, and so I was like, the 8-month woman who was like fixing lights and telling people what to do, and I would get on set and work like 10 hours on set, and so and it falls down onto what your spouse really believes in you, and if you have that support, you have the drive and the passion, and so you constantly have that to go on. And I told my husband, at the beginning, I was like, I'm really going to do this, but it also means that I'm not going to be there at the crack of dawn to balance all the I'm not going to be the nya that I used to be, because it's going to be taking away my weekends, because it's because here in the day and age that we live in, we can only shoot 2 days a week, weekends where everybody else, because we all are still working a different job, and this is kind of like something we do on the side. And so it's I will say that in the beginning it was very tough, very tough, because a lot of my husband has a very traditional family, and so a lot of the uncles that were very traditional, like, oh, why are you letting especially if it's a woman who's on set, and my crew consisted of mainly guys, and so it was just me and the makeup artist who were the only woman. Everybody else, and
Can you
when
explain that in English for the non-speaking
sure.
Hmong people?
Of course.
I can't pronounce say it in Hmong, but like Balai or whatever you're saying.
It's kind of like when a lot of the older generation, they view a woman being on set as somebody who is going to destroy their marriage, someone who is going to get their marriage destroyed, who is going to be not only working faithfully but working unfaithfully, especially if their cast and crew is full of mainly guys. And aside from my makeup artist, it was just me and her who were the only two women. Everybody else was men. And then, of course, take granted, I was also working while I was pregnant too. And so people who take a look at this from the outside, who's looking in, they're going to be like, oh, she's not a responsible woman. She's not a responsible mother. She doesn't take care of her family while her husband is, doing all this. She's here having fun. And most people view Hmong filmmaking as having fun. They don't view it as a way of making an income. They don't view it as that you are going to get rich. And if you go into Hmong filmmaking or any filmmaking in general, thinking you're going to do one film and be completely rich, it's the wrong mentality on that. You actually are not going to make a lot. First off, you're not going to get famous overnight. You know, the premiere is like all glory and we're all dressed up and everybody has a smile on their face, but all that hard work that leads up to that premiere night is about sacrifice and loss of sleep and, you know, arguing with cast and crew and trying to figure out how we're going to do this because the location we wanted doesn't work out and we have to, you know, erase what we wrote in our screenplay and then write something completely different. And for me as a woman, it was going into this, there were a lot of male directors who looked at me as competition. And I told them that, you know, it's not competition. It's about each one following their own journey in their life, you know, and if you view me as competition, then that's really just your own thoughts. But I've never viewed any other one as competition, or even my female co-directors or colleagues out there. I really want, you know, a lot of the women directors to stand up and say, hey, this is what I want to do. I want the husbands to support their wives and say, hey, I want my wife to shine, because, you know, our Hmong history, it's not painted down where it's written in history where we can go back and reread what it's written. It's actually passed down verbally. And so if we don't record all of these histories or all of these stories that we have, pretty soon when all our generation is gone, we're not going to remember anything. And creating a legacy of your own, whether you're a male or female, is what we are all gifted to do. And we want to be able to see that. And I remember the first time seeing my name on that big screen when it said screenplay written by Houa, I think I like literally melted into a pot of butter. I was like, oh wow, you know, and it actually is happening. And so, you know, being aside from all this and then working on set too and coming home to my husband, which at that time they had elected him as president of our clan, and which we all know that as a president of the clan, your wife is supposed to be on your arm everywhere you go. I was missing at a lot of the gatherings. And it was where I would shoot 10 hours a day, come back home, no sleep, 8 months pregnant, change into a gown and go with him to like an event, you know, and just be like, okay, I'm here to support you. Let's just do what you need to do. And then go back home. And then the next morning, wake up at 3 a.m, go meet the cast and crew, you know? And so when you break it down into this, if you don't have that support within the home, it doesn't matter that you are famous. It doesn't matter that you're making a living out of this. It will drain you. And so having that support is what will actually keep your drive going. And even if we do like the small budget films like this, that little support that says, hey, I'm here from the beginning until the end, and you know, so far and beyond that, it gives you that drive to say, hey, I can do this. I can do this, even if everybody else, they don't believe in me. As long as the person within your home believes in you, then you can still get up every day and still go and hustle.
So, Money, what about you? Do you get support from your family? Like, because I mean, I should clarify that support doesn't mean that we feel like they don't support us, but it's more of like they don't understand it, so that's why they don't support it.
Yeah, sure. And I think it's more of you know how like our whole generation of like, you know, especially like, you know, I'm first generation. I was born, I'm a refugee coming here, and you're being the firstborn son of, you know, my mom, my dad, and everything like that, you know, and it's more, and then you come from a whole family that are just, everybody is so, in the Hmong community, everybody's all about being doctors, lawyers, and so forth. And that's all they think about is like, oh, that makes money, right? But I think my biggest thing was when I decided to leave my comfortable, you know, job, the just over broke job, you know, to become to truly pursue this career and go after it. It was very, very hard to try to tell that, you know, and because people don't get it, nobody gets it, you know. I mean, my grandfather, he sat there and told us like, why am I going to do this? Like, you know, I'm going to fail. You know, I'm going to come home. You know, so when I finally made the move out here to LA to really push it hard, it was kind of like one of those things where I ended up, you know, turning around and throwing the arrow down with the fire and burnt the boat, because to me, there is no going back. because it's something that I want to do, you know. And it's like I tell all the kids, it's like, look, if you truly want to be a filmmaker, then you do it because you love it and not because of the money. Because if you do it for the money, then you're just gonna quit and you're gonna go home. But if you do it for the love of the art, then you're constantly gonna push yourself. You know, you're gonna eat noodles, you're gonna cry, you're gonna might be homeless, you know. I mean, I was homeless for a little bit there, you know, and you know, it's one of those things where it's like you passionately have to love something that you do, and eventually that money will come, you know. But what we charter in is like I said, it's like I don't think anybody in the Hmong community like can truly understand, because it's something that's so vague and so broad, and it's not like somebody like, you know, has truly done it and has a blueprint that can come back and tell other kids how to do it. So what we do is, as we're, yeah, Hmong Hai, you know, you trồng cây, so it's like you trồng cây, cây don't get paid, you trồng ra, and then you must start that like who you know, your next generation, right? Or want to be a filmmaker, that you talk in that be a pay attention, at least you see you know. So that's why I do it. But I mean, to be honest with you, it's like it's not like they don't support you. I just think they don't get it. And even, you know, when you know you produce a movie or whatever, they hear, oh, you're producing movie that you're supposed to make, all of a sudden you're supposed to make money, and you're like, no, like you don't make money. Like you'll get a residual check here and there, but it's not like big Hollywood, which is making like billions of money, you know. Or sometimes, like, you know, they just don't understand like the process of it.
So one of the questions that me and Kak always like to ask the panel, as far as the patriarch system within the Hmong community, like, what are the struggles you guys encounter, and how do we navigate, but still, you know, pay an homage to how we grew up and navigate through to help the next generation to, you know, to move forward, but still encompass the heritage of what we grew up, you know, the systematic of the Hmong patriarch, if that makes sense.
So I think one of the things that makes it, you know, tough for me as a woman filmmaker is that there's like a stereotype where we are, once you get married, you know, your job is to, you know, take care of your husband, take care of your kids, and you know, you get that beaten into your brain. Rồi là hay nếu dùng hai trong cái lời một cái năng lượng tổ you nói ở there you mua you chỉ cái you chỉ nên cho lại you chỉ cho lên đó you lời chỉ nên tu sa nói ở, so you're trying to still live your dream while still trying to, you know, make a dream of your own. And so it becomes something that is really hard for you to kind of to live in, to dwell in, because you had you want to be an individual woman, yet you still have this huge dream that you want to accomplish, and you want to still be able to have the success as being itu traditional nhà itu nhà rong thế nào đó có thể bên mong là cái bên mong họ thì you tu chế tu nên sợ ta cho ta gì này cái who is a good wife and a good you know, who have you có một khó tôi này sợ ta là này cái only you chế nên nó lo rồi rong này so for me, you know, once I dove into this, I knew that I would be erasing a good part of it. I would be erasing all that I spent many years building. And I knew that my parents, you know, would come up to me and say, hey, có only know you chỉ cho cái li bé mong or là, you know, bé mong bé chỉ mua đòi you to see leaving your husband to take care of all your kids while you go and, you know, shoot a film for 8 hours. You know, we don't have that in our traditional upbringing. And for me, when I spoke with my husband and we sat down, we talked about it, going, you know, it's something that we have, it's a challenge, but it was also a challenge that I was willing to pave, because I told myself that if I didn't do it, you know, or if I didn't start, or if somebody didn't start, it would always be in the back of my mind where I would live with a lot of regrets, you know, where I would say to myself, I wish I could have done this. I wish I could have done that. And this is one of those things where, you know, I fall back into what Moua used to say, is that it doesn't matter what happens, is that at the end of the day, we get to tell our story. And our story is what is going to inspire somebody. We have a lot of people who are silent watchers who watch us silently and have that hope and that, you know, that, that need to know that somebody is actually doing it first. And it was really hard. But then I think back to all of the people who could be silently watching, or I could be silently inspiring, or those who have inspired me. And I let that be my guidance into how I'm going to overcome this.
So what advice would you have for like the young girls out there, or not even young girls, or even like older women that always try to do what they want to do, but it's always like that what if and holding back and traditions. Like, what advice would you give to them? Like, communicate with your spouse, or I mean, like, what advice would you have for them to help navigate through the patriarch system to follow your dream?
I always think back on what my mom told me while she was on her deathbed. And cô nhảy hai cô tia sa ke tu shia ke kian hu no cô ilang tu sa e cô pa na ke cô ilang ka sa ke tu shia sa. Let me be the only one who leaves with regret, and let you live with all the courage. And to all the young generation out there, or even anybody who's watching, to remember that nobody can take away your dream unless you allow them to. And we live in a society where many people do try to take away your dream, but remember that that is just them marketing themselves as a way that they were not able to complete their own dream. And don't let anything stop you, because at the end of your life cycle, you want to be able to say, I did that. I lived a fulfilled life. You chỉ tao ý ya không khó cái bộ phim chế độ ý để kia. That's what's important about filmmaking, is that you leave behind a legacy, so that one day something should see or should appear, you can say and to use that as a way to create the courage to challenge yourself to overcome all of that fear.
About you, more like just coming from like an older generation, like how did you deal with the patriarch system? And I know you're kind of like still you're like new traditions too that kind of fall into your way of living, so like how did you navigate it, or how do you see it from a guy's perspective of like tradition is tradition, but we can compromise and help the next generation, help your daughters or son to be a better husband or wife, to theirs.
For the young ladies, I would say that, I don't want to be preaching to people and you should do this or do that, but I would say that just take advantage of what you already have here in America, and don't look at the expectations that you have. And at the same time, don't go all out rebellious either. You don't want to do that. You don't want to go either extreme. You want to be able to balance being a Hmong lady who can balance both, but at the same time, you're still able to pursue your dream and whatever it is that you want to do. And if you can prove, I think the young guys, like, yeah, same thing with the guys. If you wanted to go and do something like that, but you can't prove yourself, then whether you're a guy or a girl, it doesn't matter. Your parents gonna say, man, I told you so. You should have gone to this, or you should have gone to that. And so we have to prove it to ourselves first, and then when our parents realize, or our uncles, our aunts, because they envision us as a young woman, when you get married or when you're at certain age, they expect you to be like this or like that. But the things that you wanted to do may not be in a traditional way that would fit who you are as a Hmong woman. You just take advantage of what you have already, and then if you are a person who cares and understands about your community, your parents, you just make sure they understand. If they don't, that's fine. You just go and then you prove yourself, because that's the only way. I could say all kinds of things, tell you all kinds of give you all kinds of direction, but unless you're in there fighting it out yourself, and unless you have the true passion and the true talent
to really go out there and get it and prove it yourself. And you know what? If you do that and you can prove yourself, you're actually going to be the pioneer. Pioneers are those who goes out there where nobody has gone before. So I would challenge our ladies, don't let the Pelu community view and stop gone. Don't let it. And whatever the reason, you're the only one that will ultimately be the one that stop yourself. No one else. Whether it be our system, that may have certain part in it, but ultimately it's you.
So just for time's sake,
Mhm.
let's navigate to the next question. This probably more pertain to Moua and Houa and Money, just because you guys are more on social media than Yayo. How do you guys deal with bad reviews or cyberbullying or bully? What advice can you give to the next generation to, to deal with that? Because that's really prominent at the moment in our own community.
My personal advice to them is that if you let your critics determine your art, they've already won. Because it is like when you create art, you're always gonna have critics, okay? And especially in the Hmong community, they love drama. It's like but they're also the same people who create the drama, but then don't create nor would they support the art. You know what I'm saying? Personally, I take every criticism as fuel to do the next movie better.
For me, I always go with the term that you can't make everybody happy. Product again. It doesn't matter if it's film or whatever it is, a product or a service. You're not going to be able to make everybody happy. And for me, I take a look at it as the people who are supportive. They are the ones who are giving me that drive, and the ones who have something negative to say, I honestly actually do not read a lot of the reviews, like the negative reviews, because for me, I always feel that, a lot of them are dramas that if you read it, you have the tendency to want to answer, you just have data, and so you want to defend your product because it's something that you spent so much time, you're like, oh, someone is saying something bad, but I have to say something in defense of it. And so I've always even told my cast and crew, like, don't respond to it. Don't respond to any of the negative, comments or feedbacks on there. If you read it and you have that need to respond to it, then just don't read it. Take a look at what the people are actually saying that is helping you make your next project better. Those who are actually supporting you, those who are telling you what a great job you've done. And a lot of times people, they look into this as they're looking at this as viewers and not as people who are actually working in the industry. So even I put myself in my own shoes before I went into actually working on set and I was just reviewing. I looked at it in two different ways, and then being able to work behind the scenes, I got a taste of how hard it actually was. And so people can actually say, oh, you should have done this, should have done that, but then we all know that we all work within a budget. And so we have to be creative with the limited resources that we have. And I've always not read any of the bad comments or any of the negativity. I don't let that drag me down. I don't let it bring me to a point where I feel like I shouldn't continue doing what I need to do.
I guess this question is more for Moua and Houa, because you're more traditional Hmong filmmaking and you tend to do more stuff. So can you explain like what you do when you make your movie? Like, for example, for somebody like me, Yayo, and Money, we're on set. Me personally, because I know Houa was talking earlier about how she's on set directing, but she's moving lights. Like for me as a DP, I don't even let my directors catch the light because that's just how the industry we're in. But you guys are a little different. So can you talk a little bit like what the duties you do when you're making your movie?
Working with Hmong movie, unfortunately, we don't have the luxury of a professional crew, or at least a crew who have a certain amount of knowledge in filmmaking or production, the production aspects of it. So when I go to Thailand, well, most of my film that I shoot in Thailand. So I do have a crew. It's not that I'm running around doing everything. I do have a crew. And I do assign things for them to do, but what I mainly do is the cinematography and the directing part of it, because when you go to Thailand, you either can't hire a professional Thai photographer to come and shoot your film, or you can't just pick out a Hmong guy who has a certain camera and just have him shoot either, because it's going to be a nightmare, because he's not going to understand your film terms, technical terms, and he's not going to understand how, you know, your whether he's shooting a reverse angle or whatever. For example, so I just to eliminate a lot of things and the headaches of it, okay, I do mainly those two. And as far as lighting, I will bring lights, or I will buy lights over there, and I have a guy handle it, the physical aspects of it. I will have him handle it, but I will tell him. And again, it comes down to, for example, like CAC. You know, if I give you a set of light, and we go into the location, and I tell you that, okay, here's where we're gonna shoot. Okay, whether you're handling camera or light, or you're the DP, you're handling the camera, and you want to know, you know, where your lights are. And okay, here's the scene. Here's what's gonna happen. Here are the characters. Here's what they're gonna do. And okay, you understand. And then you just, you know, you just go, and then we'll just work, and then you'll set things up, and then I come and I observe. And okay, good. And okay, it's no such thing over there. And so you have a guy who actually carry your lights, and then you tell him to, okay, set it up over here, set it up over there, and then you observe, okay, so that takes a toll on you too, actually, and you don't have the luxury of, you know, guys who knows what they're doing, and okay, you have to kind of end up doing a little bit of everything, but not that I do everything. I do hire guys. I do hire guys who handles the mic, because every single one of my movie I do. I don't do ADR simply because the guys are over there. I don't want to come over here and have a different guy dub his voice for the main character over there. It just doesn't feel right. And again, I try to, when I go over there, I try to record their dialogues or whatever sound there is as good as I can. And so I do have a boom mic operator. Again, they have much more experience, much more skill, but you have to train them on the spot. You either train them on the spot, or you have a guy that you know that you're gonna have him work throughout the whole movie. Okay, you kind of train him that how it works, and you know how far away from, you know, here's my shot, you know. And so if you put the mic this much, then when you come around and look at my shot, and then you won't know where to put your mic. And either up here or down here, you train them on the spot, and then they will handle that, and you just concentrate on your direction, and then you concentrate on your camera. And I do that, as well as some other crews, those who push the dolly cart or crane, do the jib shot or whatever. I have all of those to do the manual work, but you still have to kind of like give them certain direction. Not that you're a control freak, man. I wish I have a crew who knows what they're doing, so I don't have to look like a control freak, you know. And so that's how I work. And that's the only way you can get it done. So even you go to whether you do it here or go in Thailand, doesn't matter whether they know what they're doing or not. You just have to train them on the spot, or train them before you go train them how to read the script. You know what scene numbers are, what scene headings are, where the dialogues are. As you go on, I shoot so many movies over there. So I have a certain crew that I work with now that I go over there, and they already know how my routines, and they already know what they're doing. So yeah, I guess that's pretty much how I work over there.
So I do kind of echo what Moua is saying too. For me, you know, I always make sure that my cast and crew know the screenplay inside and out. So anybody who is actually on set, whether they are the camera guy, whether they are just the boom mic operator, or the makeup artist, they all are actually handed a copy of the screenplay so that they can actually read, and they know what the story is, what they need to know, what scene we're shooting. I also have a storyboard artist who creates, a drawing, see my scene, shoot, and so my camera guy actually knows what angles to shoot from. And so, and then, my boom guy who operator is sometimes is my husband, because we're limited on people. And so he's there, and I'm just like, okay, I need you to hold it this way. This is how far we're going to be doing, like what Moua said, are we going to be shooting from overhead or under? And so And one of the reasons why sometimes I'm like, okay, move the light over here, move the light over there is the same thing. You know, I work with crew member who I teach like on the spot. You know, rồi tôi cho you cái là điều kiện nó có tôi có ya ba e check cái light nó nó cái you're teaching them as you're going, and it's because you know we are limited on budget, and our cast and crew are mainly people who you boss and you do tụi nó nói nữa thì okay tụi nó yêu của I don't know, someone I know who's really interested in film and he would like to come and kind of get a feel of how it is to work in set. Okay, yeah, we need an extra hand on lights. You know, we need someone to carry all the heavy stuff. And so they're carrying all the heavy stuff and setting up. And my job is basically making sure that all of the actors are on time. I'm actually really anal on time. And so for those who are never on time, I feel like I'm constantly like being the wicked witch from the from the east who's always saying you're late, but one of the things that I am really big on is like the screenplay, making sure that everybody knows exactly when you come on set, exactly that we're going to be shooting this scene, how it's going to go. All the actors, they know their line, they're prepared. We've got the wardrobe specialist who comes in and they know exactly how the makeup artist, and that's one of the hardest things is that when you don't finish a scene, when you don't finish shooting a scene, and you have to come back like the next day and make sure that their makeup and hair and everything is done completely the same, because then the editor is gonna have a pain in the head, when he's trying to cut and paste, and the actor's earrings are different from like 1 second to second 7. So that's one of the things that I'm anal on, is like the little details in there where I have to make sure that everybody's hair is the same. Are your nails trimmed? Because that's one of my biggest things is like where you and so I'm like, all those little details for me are what I pay attention to. And so and again, working with a very traditional crew where you're teaching them as you go. And I would love it if I have the ability and the budget to just hire people who are actually very trained in that specific area. I don't tell you, they just say, hey, okay, today we're shooting here. I got it. I can take care of everything. And I just sit back and I just say, okay, ready, action, cut, nasana. But unfortunately, because we work in, in an industry where we're not there yet, you are doing a little bit of everybody else's job and also teaching as you go and then teaching yourself as you go. So that's pretty much how a day on the set is for me.
So since screenplay is like big on you, do you write in English and then on set translate into Hmong for the actors or the crew? Like how does that process work? And how hard is it to like translate, to take from English words into finding the right Hmong word to say what you want?
So for screenplay, details, the little details, okay, I write in English, but if the dialogue is going to be in Hmong, it will be written in Hmong.
Okay.
So yeah, it will be written in Hmong, and then I will work with the editor at the end to make sure that subtitles are translated correctly, to make sure that none of the translation is lost in between.
So let's move on. Yayo, can you talk a little bit about what a cinematographer does and like what you do as AC and like some of the positions within the cinematography department?
Yeah,
And, like,
sure.
do you have like hiring power?
A cinematographer, I wouldn't necessarily say they have hiring power, but they have a say in who gets hired. Because the producer hires everyone, but the producer defers to the DP or the cinematographer, the director of photography, cinematographer, same thing. So like I maybe like, producers may come up to me and say, oh, do you have a crew that you want to work with? Do you have an AC, a gaffer, a grip that you want to work with? And then I'll give them my list. And usually I'll already, if it's a job, I would already let the person know, hey, I have a job and it's like, are you available? It's on this day, you can pay this much, et cetera, et cetera. And then usually when they confirm with me, I will then give the information to the producer who will do the actual hiring. So that's like a tricky question, because yes, as a cinematographer, because you're head of a department, you do have some hiring power, but it's only in the sense where you have a preference choice. there have been cases where, not to me specifically, but I've been on jobs where it's like, oh, the cinematographer wanted this AC, but then the producer was like, no, I I hate working with that guy. We're not hiring that guy. So even though the cinematographer, unless the cinematographer was a must hire and like definitely wanted to fight to hire his guys, the producer has the ultimate veto. And so I've seen people not get hired. I've worked on jobs where I was the replacement or I was the alternative. I wasn't the cinematographer's guy. I was the producer's guy when I'm in AC, which is why I think it's really important to. We all get frustrated. We all get stressed, especially when we work long days and get no sleep. I think it's very important to always try. If you let's say you blow up, like you just have a little fit, it happens. Not everybody has the patience to like stay calm all the time. But if you can come back, apologize, and um, confront the situation like, oh, sorry, the situation got the best of me, my bad. I feel like doing things like that allows you to build strong relationships, not with just the people in your department, but like the art guy, the sound guy, the producer. It's very important to build good relationships with people beyond the ones you're working directly with, because you never know who's going to have a say or who might give you a job. Like I've had sound guys refer me to work because they loved working with me, and producers or didn't know because they were like out of town or like it's like a last minute dropout and they needed someone, so they'll ask someone in their crew who they trust.
Go into a little detail. Like, what do you do as a cinematographer? Like, I
Like
know it's really hard to
yeah,
explain.
it's but like I want to explain it to people so that like, because there's the general idea people think of, oh, they light, they choose the camera angles, they shoot, they're the photographer, they shoot it. That's like the romantic pretty side of it. But I actually think the biggest and most important thing of a good cinematographer is being able to manage a crew, because the director is relying on you to handle that part of it. So a good cinematographer is not only good with an eye, because a lot of people have a good eye. There's a lot of people that can shoot a pretty picture, but can you shoot a pretty picture efficiently? Can you communicate with your crew so they understand what you want? Um, can you manage the situation should something go wrong, something go bad? How good are you of a manager are you? I feel like a cinematographer is um, all encompassing on the camera and lighting side. And you also have to be able to work with the director, the art director, the producer. So it's like, it's I don't want to say manager because that's like that doesn't sound right, but it is a very important thing. Managing people, managing crew, managing situations. That
Because I even find myself managing directors
yeah,
depending on the director.
doing it in a way where you're not offending the director too.
Yeah.
It's like you gotta be able to finesse your way, manage actors, manage vice versa. And I'm sure they do the same to me.
Yeah.
Directors like, okay, Yayo, we'll get this shot. Okay, after this. So it's a back and forth.
Let's go because we're short on time. Money, can you talk a little bit about post-production, like especially in the visual effects, like some of the different positions within the visual effects department? Like, and what's the difference between visual effects and special effects?
The difference between visual effects and special effects is that like everything that we do in the visual effects is an enhancement of the shot. We are creating everything digital, like a set extension, the creatures, the Thanases, the Drogon dragons, the fire, like the Transformers, like all those things, like sometimes even, extra White Walkers or extra zombies, the digital bloods. That's what we do as visual effects. Special effects now, those guys are the ones that put the prosthetics on or like create like the fake blood, You know, like when somebody gets shot, is everything that's practical in camera is special effects, like the, you know, like the gasoline explosions, the Michael Bay explosions actually happen on set. But recently, I mean, it's starting to tip and change because, you know, people are wanting just more visual effects because it's easier to handle and control in post. But as for like the different departments, it's a whole like village, and it's like there's like a ton of people that work in it. I mean, you know, you get everything from storyboarding to concept artists to uh, you know, to character creation to rigging to modeling to asset modeling to, you know, painting the textures to uh, making sure that everything looks like you know, you got like an asset that looks just like, then they need the practical, it has to look exactly, the digital has to look exactly like the practical, you know, or like creating the digi doubles where we have to scan the actual actor and then recreate that person to make it that it's a one-to-one look that you can't even tell the difference. You know, so from there you got rigging to animation to tracking, which is like, you know, when you guys, and I hate this, but you know, I'm your worst enemy on set. For any cinematographer, any AD, any director, I'm your worst guy. That's that. You know, especially the cinematographers, they hate our department because they're like, I think I got it. I was like, no, you don't, because there's no tracking marker that you guys are doing, and you guys are shooting everywhere. You know, why are you going freehand if you want to drag him to come down? It just doesn't work like that, you know. So, you know, it's stuff like that where, you know, you got to, sometimes you get played like that, where you got to like track, roto, clean the plate out, you got to do the set extension. Then you come down to CG assets where you have to light the character to match whatever the plate is, to make sure they sit to one with whatever, however you got shot that day, to all like the visual effects, which creates the digital explosions, all the great stuff, like, you know, all the superpower, you know, lightnings and all this stuff. So then from there you go to comping, which pieces all that stuff together to get, you know, from the plate, digital assets, they comp it, they make it look like it's seamless between whatever was shot, whatever the digital asset is, to deliver to actually the final, you know.
So how do you guys see us as this new generation uh, improving in the Hmong industry? Like, what can we do to help improve the Hmong film industry? And this is
I
for all
mean,
of us.
you know, I personally think that, you know, and people are trying, you know, and the Hmong, I mean, the Hmong industry itself is actually, you know, I see the storytelling. There's a lot more people who are trying new things, you know what I'm saying, and want to venture out to be more daring. But you know, it's just hard to really like say stuff and not offend people in a sense where it's like that's their art. But you know, it's in a sense where it's like, you know, you just have to do it. You know what I'm saying? You're gonna have to do it, and you're just gonna have to constantly upgrade. But to me, when I started this whole industry, was like I always looked like bought the DVD or the Blu-ray just to see the BTS or how did they do it, right? And then I will always try to come back and translate that into the Hmong industry. It's like, hey, if I'm gonna do this, how did they do it? How did Hollywood do it? You know, and then try to push that limit of the art that you create. But if we don't do that, then it's like we can't ever grow. So it's like even with visual effects stuff, you know, it's like, you know, that's why, you know, when I try to teach or I help kids and they're like, oh, I can do this in After Effects. I'm like, no, because it's like it's not the same, you know. And I'm not trying to always bash people, but sometimes it's like even with me, I mean, when I first started this industry as an artist, like, you know, I always think that I'm good, like I'm the best, right? But that's the point where it's like that's where you kill yourself. It's like if you stop growing and you stop listening to people who are better than you, right, who have been in this industry longer than you, or have actually had field experience, right, then you will never grow.
So
But I just
Moua,
want to say, I think it's like,
the question was, what do you think the Hmong filmmakers need to do to the Hmong filmmakers, you know, to kind of like grow
Well,
as a community? Yeah.
how can we improve the Hmong industry? I think you've been in it longer than all of us. So I think you might have a better insight on like how can we improve the Hmong film industry.
Okay, how can we improve? Yeah, sorry, somehow my Zoom just all of a sudden disappeared on me. It crashed, I think. Yeah, so I was trying to sign it back in, but I'm glad I got back in. Yeah. So how do we improve? Well, there's so on that part, there's so many. I think as far as for my own experience, and I'm speaking on myself only, so for now, and how I try to improve and how I improve myself. There are so many factors into it, but I think how we improve ourselves is, I think first of all, we have to ask ourselves, okay, how does Hmong view my movies? How does Hmong view my movies? Do they take it seriously? And if they don't, why? If they do to a certain point, then why? That's where you go from there. Instead of oh, you know what, Hmong shy Hmong movie, Hmong support. I as a filmmaker have to come back and look at myself and say, maybe my films are not good enough. Maybe the quality is not good enough. So each of us, the initial part is we as a filmmaker, we have to be willing to say, okay, maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe my cinematography sucks. I don't even understand that. Maybe I didn't even understand the principle of cinematography or even the basic, because if we are honest with ourselves, I look at a lot of Hmong movies. It seems like a lot of don't even understand the concept of cinematography or just the basic principle of composition. That's where we can start. And how we improve, that's how we can start. And then from there, we can improve on our stories. Perhaps our stories are too simple. It's too simple because for the average Hmong American who are exposed to really complex and sophisticated Korean films or Hollywood film, they're not gonna go for a Hmong movie because it's too simple. So we can improve from there, from a very simple Hmong story into a more complex character, or more complicated or more sophisticated characters, not of mine. So that's where some of the young films, I'm talking about the viewers and the filmmakers out there, that you are young, how you can improve and take it to the next level. You have to look at it that way. You have to look at your skill level, and then you look at the OGs like me, and say, okay, here's how these OGs do it. These old guys that started from back then, here's how they do it, and this is the level that they're at. As for me, okay, I want to go for another level. You have to push yourself, and then that's how we improve it. And then from there, because the only way that we can grab an audience is it's up to us. We have to know what we're doing. Cinematography has to be good. You have to know what you're doing. The story has to be good. The direction has to be good. Everything, because they'll compare your movie with this Korean, this multi-million-dollar Korean movie, this $30-50 million Korean movie, or this $150 million Hollywood movie with a $5,000 or $10,000 little Hmong movie. They are comparing your movie with that. At least the production standards of it, there's just no way you can win. But at least you look at yourself and say, okay, here is my shortcoming. How do I improve? As for me, that's how I look at it. If this time I make a movie like this, it's simple, but then I want to go a little bit a step higher. Or my cinematography, here's what I did wrong. I got it to a certain point, but I wanted to be a different. That's how we improve it. But like I said, there are so many factors that comes into it. Improve your films. There's so many factors into it. But I think as for the simple and the simpler part of it, that's how we do it. And then we build our stories, make a good story that people can relate to, or improve the way we write our story, because most of it, again, even the story is too simple, and it's simple. When I look at, I'll be honest with you guys out there, the panel and guys out there, when I look at a Hmong movie, for me, it's simple. The average viewer people who are educated out there, or people who are consider themselves to be educated and sophisticated, they're not going to watch our movie. So that's where we have to improve ourselves, our stories, and what are like build a story, and that's how we improve ourselves in a few of the small factors that we can improve.
So Hoa, do you feel like to improve the film industry in the Hmong community, do you feel like you need more support from the male filmmakers in the Hmong community? You know, and pretty much what I always say is like, if we all come together in the Hmong film industry and let our egos go, we could really make an amazing film. Do you feel that way, or what's your perspective on that?
There are a lot of male support. Okay, like I get a lot of more support, okay. But there are those who we and I, Moa and I, we've talked about this a lot over the years, is trying to come up with, a really good storyline with a really good budget and to make a really good story. But then when you bring in a lot of people who believe that they are better than the rest, it becomes something where it's like what you said, like an ego contest, oh, I think I'm better because I have this many experience behind me versus you, who's somebody who's fresh meat. And so when you have people working like that, you shishitona. And what I would like to see is just for everybody to let go of how much experience they have, how good they are at what they do, and just sit in a room and just say, hey, how can we make a really good story without bringing in our ego, without bringing in all of our background and challenging our colleagues to say, hey, I've got this much background to me versus you who is only a screenwriter. I'm actually a producer. I can direct. I can do all this. I know lighting and all this. And so if we can let go of all that and just sit in a room and honestly just say, let's create a story that is meaningful, that is worthy to watch, and bring in budget that can make this an actual film that we can all be like, wow, this is actually really good, versus, oh, okay, I'm going to be my own one-man team. I'm just going to do it myself because everything you're saying doesn't sit well with me and I prefer to just do that. And we all know that when you work on a one-man team, you don't go very far. You suffer a lot versus somebody who's willing to work with a team, who's willing to bring in experiences from pull many different hands to help you. And so that's what we have to learn how to do, is big moments that we so and work no matter if you are a man or a woman or 15 years plus or just 2 years, that we can all come together and work and bridge together and make a film that because we all know that behind the scenes there's so much work that we put into it. And if we can actually accomplish that, I think that would be a really great thing for our Hmong community.
And I also want to add to what Hoa is saying, that it's not just in the Hmong community, like even out in Hollywood, as we say, you deal with the same thing with egos, people who think they're better than somebody. So it isn't just happening to us, but that's a really good advice.
This is like an interesting topic and something that I've thought about more as I've gotten older. Because when I was young, starting out, Hmong film industry, I watched a lot of Hmong movies growing up, but the Hmong film industry, like to me, I never really classified anything. I just wanted to make stuff. And I do feel like the Hmong movies that I grew up watching, while technically it may not have been the best because of budgetary and reasons, but I do feel like the stories were, even as like a Hmong American kid born in America, I was able to resonate with it, or I was able to feel it when like they talked about stories from Laos, stories from Thailand, or stories of an immigrant. So I do feel like our stories are there, and with us, our technical skills are also like there, like reaching to a point. But it's like there are those of us that are working in the mainstream or in Hollywood or whatever it is. I'm trying to like, because the Hmong industry is not going to come to me, I gotta I gotta look to them and be like, hey, how can I help you? Because like I've been trying to reach out to more like Hmong artists. Like I shoot a lot of music videos and stuff. And me and my creative partner, who like directs a lot of the music videos that we work on, every now and then we will offer to shoot it for free. Um, you know, it's like the artist just puts themselves up and all that stuff because we want the creative freedom. So we offer our labor, we offer the camera package, our skills, and I was thinking to myself, I was like, this is great, you know. And I shoot all this stuff for all these artists, but I wish I could do something for the Hmong community. And the question is, what is a Hmong film? Like, what makes it a Hmong film industry? Is it a story that's specifically Hmong, or is it a film that's made by Hmong people? Is it a movie that's starring Hmong people? Is it all the above? And I do feel like the key is to just make a good film. You know, tell the stories that are true to you. If I tell, you know, my father has told me stories of him growing up, his stories, and like it's crazy stuff. We all have family members that have stories from lost in Thailand that are like incredibly emotional, incredibly powerful, and it doesn't just relate to Hmong people because it's about struggling to survive. It's about you know, oppression. It's about war. It's about conflict. It's about, you know, all kinds of things that can be universal. Um, and I think that we have individually Hmong people that are good writers, good directors, good editors. The question is, how do we get these people together? You know, I think we have the individual ingredients, especially now, and like the individual skills. It's like, how do we get these minds together? I feel like that's the question because it's like I don't know many other Hmong people that do film, um, and it's only a handful. But I'm sure like there are a lot of Hmong people who aren't pursuing it that are very creative, that have great stories. I think we should encourage people, even if you don't want to make a living of it, if you have a story, write it down. You know, I think it's about just encouraging everyone in our industry or in our community to put their story down. Whether or not they want to shoot it, maybe they don't want to shoot it, or maybe they don't care to shoot it, but like they want to tell that story. Well, maybe some give your story to like a screenwriter and they'll write it, and then you know somebody will direct it and somebody will shoot it. I think that's the thing. Like instead of like, oh, I have to write it, direct it, and shoot it, it's like no, just like we just have to find these great stories that are within our community and offer our services and our skills up to tell it in the best way that we can.
To echo what Yayo was saying, I think we do have good stories and good stories idea, but it's just that translation into the visual medium that we need to learn to do better. Because if you look at the Hmong history, we've always tell stories, you know, but we've always told it verbally. So it's that transformation of going from a verbal storytelling into a visual storytelling.
Mhm.
Art, it's not the story per se, it's more of like, like you always have like the one person who wants to do it all, and you're like, dude, you cannot be the writer, the director, the editor, the sound designer, and everything, like, and also be the camera guy and the guy who moves the light, like, no, there's a village behind it, there's an art behind it. That's the reason why in Hollywood you hire people that are talented in those positions to do it, so that the director, his job is to direct, the editor, his job is to edit, and that's why it's that quality of understanding each department and why they're important. I think it's a lot of like stuff that like the Hmong like film industry doesn't get, where it's like, because you see just people where they can like, oh, I can just go buy 5D, with a 50, with a 50 prime lens, which I'm like, but you don't even know why you need a 50 prime lens or why you need to shoot it or anything. But the guy's like, yeah, then I can go to Thailand and go shoot like 10 films, but I mean, to me as an artist, I personally think that I would rather do one great film than to do 10 shitty films. You know what I'm saying? And I'm sorry, pardon my language again, you know, but that's what we do, you know, and that's
I want to
like a
push
lot of
back
like,
on
you
that a little
know,
bit. If we only, because I think the problem with we got to just start making stuff. That's the first thing. It's like anybody that wants to make stuff, the first few things we make are gonna suck, or it's not gonna be as good compared to Hollywood.
oh, trust me. And it's like, I mean, even then, it's like, if you guys ever asked me to see my very first student film, I'm like, nah, dude, like that thing is in the cans. Like, nobody's ever gonna see it. But that's the point. Is that like, you know, as you grow, right? And you need to understand that, like, you know, if you want great art, right, you're gonna have to get great artists, and that stuff is not gonna be cheap because you got to start treating. You want to start creating great content, and you got to start creating an industry where it's got to be greatness, where to a level where it's like you push that professionalism up, you know. And it's like, you know, because if you just constantly like push movie out and stuff like that, then that's all you're gonna get is that level of quality where it's like, you know, and it's kind of like a friendly, like I think it's like a friendly competition where it's like, you know, hey, you know, like my whole thing was like, you know, I live by the whole code, you know, growing up watching Moua Lee's film, you know, I am truly like, you know, like he's talented, right? He was my idol as a kid. And I pushed myself as a filmmaker to go, one of these days, like, you know, I'm gonna push myself so hard and that's gonna be that Moua Lee's gonna not only be my idol, but then he becomes my rival at the same time. Where it's like that's how you should push yourself to create this industry of where it's like, where does our standard?
I mean, I think this the standard is there. It's just everyone has their own definition of their own standard. Like for example, the reason why Ying Ta's film works is because he has a market. The reason why Moua Lee's film works because he has a market. The reason why Hua's film worked because she has a market. You know, and I think the biggest thing, you know, that I could leave it to you guys is this metaphor of, you know, to make a good Hmong sausage, you know the ingredients to make it, you know, and when you combine all those ingredients together and you have a person who cooks it correctly, it's going to be delicious Hmong sausage. You know, the same metaphor for making egg rolls. It's like one person making 100 egg rolls is tiring. You need people to help you mix it, roll it, add sauce to it, and then fry it to make it, you know, an amazing egg roll. And rather than taking all that load on yourself, you know, you want people to help. And I think the biggest point right here is I feel like all of us are trying to say is I think we need to let our ego go down and join and, you know, encompass together and form a group and make a great film together because we have, you know, screenwriters like Houa and Moua and Money, and we have editors, DPs, and you know, lightings, and the list goes on. Like we're all here, you know, as a group. So, with that said, I just want to thank you guys so much for joining this panel. It means a lot to me and CAC that, you know, we could, you guys came on, and hopefully it inspires the viewers or inspire the next generation of filmmakers and storytellers. So I just want to thank you, Houa, Yayo, right? Or Yao,
Yayo.
yeah, Yao. Sorry,
Yeah, yeah.
Moua and Money for being on this panel, and hope it inspires the next generation. And for people that want to get in contact with these filmmakers, go to douamoua.com/event and click on the filmmaker page, and it will link to their website, their Instagram, or social media. So feel free to reach out. And again, thank you so much, CAC and 10-8 Productions for putting this together. Any last words, you guys, before we end this panel?
I think what you guys are doing are great. You know, trying to extend an outreach to the other Hmong generation to be like, hey, we can do this. You know, it's like we have our struggles, but we can do this, and we are doing this.
Yeah, let me. I just want to thank Captain Doua for your efforts in putting this together. I wanted to touch on before we go. I just want to add on a little bit to the last topic that we talked. But what I want to encourage ladies and guys out there and at the panel is, I think we're getting, when people of my age, when we first start, we have nobody who has an expertise in pretty much anything, everything from lighting to all that we know is just the basic, and some don't even know, and yet they go out there and do it. And we should give them credit for that, for just going out there and doing it, simply because they love doing it. And so we shouldn't just say, discount them and say, oh, these people, but at least they try. But from this day on, the day that we're going to be able to make a good, whether it be Hmong movie doesn't mean that we're just making it for Hmong audience. These days, a Korean film is not just a Korean film made for Korean. It's a Korean film that the world can watch. Okay, that's how we should identify and classify it. But anyway,
Yeah, and I truly agree with you on that more. That's why I'm saying is like you have to push yourself. It's like it's like, do you make it for just the home audience, or do you make it to say, hey, this is a Hollywood Hmong film? Like you have to push it to where it's like it's just not for the Hmong audience anymore, and that's how you grow.
Yeah.
In everything that we do.
Yeah, and yes, for the movies that I made, it's specifically, and I know in my mind that this is only for Hmong, because others who watch it, they will just shove it aside. But anyway, so from now on, that's where we're gonna have to pursue a Hmong movie, but the world can watch it, and that's where we need professionals like you guys, professional cinematographers who know what they're doing, professional actors like Doua. You have experience in working with A-list superstars from China, A-list superstars from Hollywood. So when you come in, I have a good movie, and you come in and I have a good cinematographer, a good editor who will edit for me, a good person who understands lighting, a grip, who understands how to do this, that, and so the many things that come together. And then we have the incentive for everybody to come together. That means we have to have the money for CAC to come in and be the cinematographer, or or money, your expertise in designs, graphic design, visual effects. But my point again is, I hope that we will get to that stage where we have all professionals coming together, and let's just say just imagine that there be more a $2 or $3 million budget to make a film that Doua wants to be in. Money, you want to be in it, and Yayo, you want to be in it. Houa and Kag, everybody wants to be in it for the sake of making this film. That's when we will make a movie that will go to the next sort of level. But for now, we talk to inspire each other, and we do things at our own pace, our own level. I do things at my own level, and hopefully from what I am able to produce out there, hopefully some people will enjoy it from that. But yeah, I would encourage that hopefully someday we have an incentive to pay for everybody to come, and we can make a professional movie, even a Hmong movie. It's a Hmong movie for the world, not a Hmong movie for just a small Hmong audience. So yeah, I really appreciate the time with you guys, hanging out with you guys, and I hope that we have more time to do this, and I hope that one day we will not, this will not be a conversation anymore. By that I mean we will not talk about small stuff like this anymore. We'll talk at the level where Hmong movie is a thing of the past. Hmong movie is a corporation. It's an actual industry where we can actually support our actors. We can actually support our cinematographers, our directors, and that. So hopefully, maybe perhaps not you and I, our generation will not get there, but hopefully the future generation, one day they will not be talking the conversation that we are talking about, because people like you and I who start and who makes a difference, and who takes that little step, and then hopefully someday we will get there.
Or you want to add something, and then CAC, you want to close out?
Yeah, just want to say thank you to you guys for CAC and Doua for putting this together, and it was a pleasure sitting with all of you on this panel. And just want to remind everybody who's watching to, if no matter where you are in life, and no matter what it is that you want to do, just start. And everything that you do in life, it always starts out with an idea that nobody ever really believes in, but it's going to eventually make it happen if you believe in it, and if you put 110% in doing it. Then the first couple of years might not get you anywhere, but you know, eventually you'll get there and everybody will work at their own pace. But hopefully one day we can all come together and make something great happen. And I am truly inspired by all of you guys tonight. And thank you for having me on board. And I had a great time sitting with you guys here. And hopefully those who are watching will take away something very important to help you in your life.
And thank you for bringing the women's perspective in filmmaking to us too. So
Yeah, thanks everyone. This is a great discussion we're having, and let's continue to do it more as we go, learn from each other, and just try to tell the best stories we can. So thank you.
I'm so thrilled to be on the panel with the great Moua Lee. So I'm just saying, you know,